I'm reading from my book, The Super Couple, A Formula for Extreme Happiness in Marriage, because someone said that they can't get the book, and why not? Today, I'd like to read from the first chapter, which says, Super does not mean perfect. And before I get started, if you could subscribe to my channel, like this page, forward this video on to those that you think may need the help with their own marriage, or those who are planning to get married and you think this will help you to make sure you do have an extremely happy marriage before you get into the marriage and you mess things up. And of course, I will always take your support in the form of prayers, masses. You could have a mass said for me, or financially, if you are so able, in the link below, buymeacoffee.com. Today, the first chapter of the book is entitled Super does not mean perfect. I suppose it's my fault that whenever I begin talking about super couples, that at some point someone will correct me or assert, I don't think there is such a thing. I mean, no one has a perfect marriage. They must be lying or exaggerating. So let me start out by saying that in no way am I trying to communicate that these couples, or any couple for that matter, have been free from struggle or free from arguments. Each and every one of these couples would be the first to admit that they definitely have had their fair share of difficulties. One wife was a cabinet slammer, one was a screamer. All had their own personality quirks that caused them to respond in a manner that was not always an appropriate means of expressing one's anger, hurt, or disappointment. These were definitely not perfect couples because there are no perfect people. But remember, these couples were considered to be super because others looked at their marriage from the outside in and saw something that they felt was different, something special, or something they didn't see in their own or most other marriages. From the inside, too, these couples would have to agree whether or not they were able to put a label on it, that they did, in fact, have something special. Many would even humbly remark, oh, we're not super. We're just very, very super in our love for one another. Yet I must admit that there did exist for me and for many others a subconscious elevation of these couples just a bit to a level that could be considered a marital pedestal. It was protocol to say, well, of course, no one is perfect. I know that. I'm sure these couples have struggles. But deep down, if I were to be honest, I felt as if they were somehow immune to the falling out of love that the rest of the world experienced. It just wasn't possible for them. Marriage came easy. I now know that this faulty idealization of their relationships was part of the problem. Actually believing that other couples are perfect or somehow just haven't experienced any struggles or difficulties is a huge contributor to the problem in the first place, and not just for me, but for everyone. For instance, I can think of one specific couple who I believe to be a super couple from the outside looking in. I envision this couple and all other super couples coming home with their hearts pounding, looking into the other's eyes, hanging on their every word, and just continually smiling and laughing. Don't mock me, I really did think this. Even as they worked through finances and kids, these couples must not have raised their voices nor ever gotten frustrated, blah, blah, blah. Once I realized that even these couples got irritated with their spouses, but it was rather their decision not to get mean, nasty, or hold grudges that made them different. Once I realized that, it allowed me to see that even the most romanticized couples still had to work to be super and remain super. Though imperfect, I want this to give you hope for what super will look like in your marriage. For it is really good. But most importantly, I want to make the vision of what a super couple really is more, well, real. These couples are the cream of the crop, the best of the best. But once I realized that they weren't lying in bed making mad, passionate love all day, but that they too still lived very normal lives, it had a psychological leveling effect and made the goal of super couple a much more attainable goal. So please understand, super as it is used here does not mean perfect. But still, after observing and analyzing nearly 100 couples, it became obvious that each would recite similar phrases about their spouses, or repeat similar sentences to me at some point during their interviews. One such phrase I heard from nearly every super wife was, "I adore my husband." That always warmed my heart, and I must admit, reminded me that I was not yet super in my own marriage. Because to my knowledge, I had never uttered that phrase about my spouse. If I had, it would have been at some point in the first year of our marriage, or even before that, when I truly did adore him and was so head over heels in love with him that he and I eloped on a Wednesday afternoon with no fanfare whatsoever, just because we couldn't stand the thought of not being together every moment of every day. But to adore 10, 20, or 50 years into one's marriage is altogether uncommon and absolutely extraordinary. But before I discuss adoration and those things I actually found that all super couples have in common, I will begin by telling you first what I expected to hear from couples. The next chapter is followed by what I actually did hear in these interviews. After that, in part 3, I will present to you something that is likely to shock you as much as it did me. And that's what some super couples did not list as essential to marital superness. As you follow through the passionate pages of this research, I am certain that the super couple formula will begin to take shape before your very eyes, as it did mine over the many months and years that I was so privileged as to be able to analyze these couples' loves and lives. However, in order to alleviate any potential question or lack of clarity, the super couple formula will then be spelled out, literally, SACRED, so that you can then begin to put it to practice in your own marriage. My hope is that once you and your spouse have made it to super, and you will, that you'll contact me in order to share your story as well. Who knows? Your journey may one day be like those of all the couples whose relationships are chronicled between these covers, responsible for getting others to super too. I look forward to sharing the rest of this magical formula and this book with you. But for today, I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching this Bacon Bit. And as always, remember to live your life sunny side up.